time has come for me to have a shower on this plane. Today I'm experiencing Emirates' incredible first class on the A380 for the lowest price possible. That means a private suite with a mini bar, unlimited caviar, fancy champagne, and spirits that go for $1,000 per bottle. There's a cocktail bar on board, luxury amenities, and even a shower at 38,000 feet, and all for the cost of just £650 or about $880. No points, hacks or tricks. I'll tell you what the experience is like and how you can book this for the low price yourself. Let's get going. So excited for this one today. I think about 8 years ago, Casey Neistat's review of Emirates First Class was probably the first flight review I ever watched on YouTube. And that discovery of what first class experiences could be like is what sparked this obsession of watching these reviews, learning about points to see how I could get flights like this, which now has brought me to the point where I'm sharing these experiences with you here on YouTube. I've stayed at an airport hotel in Bangkok here overnight. It's going to be a very quick journey over to the airport and go get checked in. The hotel was actually connected to the airport via an underground tunnel, and although it dropped us off in arrivals, so it did mean that I needed to take a lift up to departures, I was through in no time at all. At check-in there was a separate queue for first class and they were really efficient. Not a chatty check-in at all, but I was very soon sorted, and they even put a first class tag on my carry-on so that everyone could see how important I was. I then made my way through fast-track immigration and security, which were equally as efficient, before boarding the tram to the satellite terminal where I would find the lounge. As it's just an outstation lounge, Emirates combined business class and first class passengers in here, and I arrived to find it pretty much deserted. Around the lounge there were plenty of comfortable seats, there was also a dining area, and plenty of self-service drinks available. From teas and coffees, to spirits and champagne. I kicked things off grabbing some food from the buffet, a little bit surprised to see no table service available or a la carte menu, but the options available at the buffet did seem high quality. I grabbed some chicken parm and veggies, plus some beef and chicken satay skewers, accompanying it with a much needed coffee for a bit of caffeine. All really good, but I definitely didn't want to overdo it because I wanted to fully take advantage of the amazing food on board. So after eating that I went to go find myself a quiet corner of the lounge to go relax in, which wasn't difficult because everywhere was a quiet corner of the lounge. It did get slightly busier in here towards boarding time, but only really in the dining area. The rest of the lounge stayed pretty quiet. The bar area had all the ingredients and equipment needed to mix myself a good Negroni. Just a shame there's no manned bar to make it for me, but the end result is the same. I've probably sounded a little bit nitpicky at times there. That's only because I was in the Qatar First Class Lounge a couple of days before this, where they do have a la carte dining and a manned bar. But ultimately this was a fantastic lounge experience, especially when you consider this is just an outstation lounge that's not at their main hub in Dubai. But after a couple of relaxing hours in the lounge, it was finally time to go board our plane. There had been a slight delay in boarding, as the flight had been delayed arriving into Bangkok, and I was really keen to get down to the gate, see our A380, and I hoped to be one of the first on board, to make the most of the time of what was going to be a relatively short flight today. A short wait around the gate area before boarding was announced, but once we did get through there was a little bit of a wait at the end of the jet bridge before we were allowed on, with one passenger really kicking off and just being a disgusting person generally, shouting abuse at the crew. But finally it was time to get on board, where I'm escorted over to my seat today, which is 1A. And what a first impression this seat makes. You've got the very Emirates decor with the wood and gold. So many unique features about this seat to take a look at, and already, even without the door closed, it was feeling like a very private space. After escorting me over to my suite, I got a very warm welcome from the crew. I was given a rundown of the various features of the seat, and they soon returned with the champagne, a bottle of the 2015 Dom Perignon. It was a nice generous pour and a great way to start things off, and I then started to have a bit of a closer look around the seat. In the drawer ahead was a notebook and pen, perfect for scribbling down travel plans. And of course you can take these with you. There's also a small vanity with some more goodies you can take. This included things like an eye cream, a sleep spray, sleep oil, facial toner. No amenity kits were handed out as standard, but you will see later I did manage to acquire one. Over to the left is a tablet which can be used as a controller for the in-flight entertainment, and it could also be used as a second screen. And then one of the fun features of the seat is this mini bar, which pops out the side table with the click of a button. It's not a refrigerated bar, but it does contain a couple of bottles of still and sparkling water, plus a few little snacks. The right armrest has a few seat controls, and then over the right shoulder there's an individual reading light and individual air vents. There's also another one of these by your left side. The right armrest contains a very small storage container, the left contains the in-flight entertainment controls if you don't want to use the tablet. Charging is available from this fold-out port or from these two USB ports. And for luggage storage, you keep these at the end of the foot cubby, and there is also an additional storage for hanging things in here. This is located at the end of the seat. The crew then came back around with some slippers and an eye mask and a tote bag so that I could carry away all the goodies on board. I was also handed today's menu, which felt more like a coffee table book than an actual menu. Loads of information and details in here about the food and of course the drink that was going to be available on board today. Probably the most elaborate menu I've had anywhere, never mind on a plane. And as my order was taken, I was given a top-up of the champagne. I was definitely most looking forward to that caviar service. I'd never actually had it until 2 days prior to this trip when I tried it on Qatar First Class, so I was interested to compare the two. And I requested to have my meal after I'd had my shower, which I booked for straight after takeoff. I tried out the provided earphones, which were from Bowers & Wilkins. These are really great quality, very comfortable and excellent noise cancelling. Emirates have one of the best in-flight entertainment systems on the world with plenty of options, although on this flight I ended up not watching any of it. Far too much to be enjoying without watching anything. We had a delayed takeoff announced due to an air traffic control restriction, and I don't think I've ever been happier to hear those words. I was pretty grateful for anything that was going to extend my time on board, and whilst waiting for takeoff I was handed some Arabic coffee, date, and enjoying these alongside the champagne is just a brilliant way to start the flight off. I was offered a top-up on the coffee, which I did decline, and then shortly after that the crew came around with the hottest hot towel I've ever received on a plane. Look at how much it's steaming away, it was actually burning my hand to hold it. And then it wasn't too long until we were pushing back and we're on our way. And as we go to make our departure and before we get up in the air to try out this incredible onboard service, now seems like a good time to tell you about how I got this for such a cheap price. Most of the time if you're flying Emirates First Class you're going to be spending thousands if not tens of thousands of pounds, and even if we were to use points you'd need to use a hell of a lot of them, and they still tend to impose quite high taxes and charges on their routes, especially those that go through Dubai, which is the majority of all of Emirates' routes. But they do have a few Fifth Freedom routes that do not go through their hub in Dubai, and this is one of those exceptions. Today we're flying directly from Bangkok to Hong Kong. This cost about 28,500 Thai baht, which is roughly £650 or $880 at the time of recording. There might be some of you watching that think 650 quid for a 3-hour flight is a bit of a crazy price to pay, but for me, flying Emirates First Class has been a bit of a bucket list item, and this route is the very cheapest way that you can book it. And I think you can reserve judgment on whether or not it's worth it until you've seen what the experience is like in the air. I certainly did my best to get my money's worth. Even a year ago this route was a lot cheaper than it is currently. I think it used to be about half the rate it currently is. But even still, at that higher rate, it still felt worth it to me at the time of booking. So let's get up in the sky so we can have that shower, have the food and drink, and see whether or not it's all worth it. I'd requested to have a shower pretty much as soon as we'd taken off. Now did I need a shower? Absolutely not, but I really wanted to experience having a shower on a plane. It's such a unique thing to experience, although the initial turbulence we were having early on did have me wondering how smart a decision that was. I mean, what do you even do if you're halfway through a shower and the seatbelt sign goes on? Or even worse, you start getting thrown about in there. So whilst I waited for that turbulence to settle down, I made myself more comfortable in the seat, starting with kicking off the shoes and putting on the comfortable provided slippers. And unlike a lot of airlines, Emirates do have different sizes of slippers so they actually fit and are really comfortable. And I then just had to try out another one of the really fun features on board, pressing that button to let those doors close. Not only is it fun to do, but it gives you an incredible sense of privacy in here with that shut. But before too long there was a knock at my door as it was time to go to the shower. The bathrooms on these A380s are absolutely enormous, well stocked with voyeur amenities, alongside dental kits, combs. Over by the massive sink you've got fragrances, there's even a heated floor, and of course the biggest feature of all, the shower. As you might expect from an airplane shower, it's not the biggest space in the world, but at 6 foot tall I was able to stand in it comfortably, and there is also a bench to sit on if you need it. Okay, the time has come for me to have a shower on this plane. Let's see how it is. Well, that was certainly an experience. Really actually pleasant shower. The temperature kept nice and hot throughout. You do have the on and off button, so you only get 5 minutes, but you can start and stop that timer as often as you like, and it retains the temperature as well, so you don't need to worry about letting it warm up again when you've stopped it like you do on some showers. And then really nice amenities to go along with it. There is also a hairdryer provided, not the most powerful in the world though, so if you do have longer hair, I wouldn't recommend getting your hair too wet because it will be a struggle to get it dry again. I then got changed into the first class pyjamas. Now pyjamas aren't handed out as standard on this short route, but as they say in my neck of the woods, shy Ben's getting out. I asked nicely and they were happy to get some for me. And they're incredibly comfortable, maybe the most comfortable pyjamas I own now. But post shower and back in my seat, it was time for that meal service. With a third of the flight duration already gone. The massive tray table is set up with a tablecloth and I'm served the Chivas Regal Royal Salute. Originally launched to commemorate Queen Elizabeth II's coronation, it's a really good whiskey. And this was very quickly followed up with my Caviar service. A very generous serving, alongside all the usual accompaniments. You've got your egg white, your egg yolks, crackers, blinis, onion. Despite how it may look in the frame, I'm not actually moving the tray table towards me in this clip, I'm actually moving the seat towards the tray table. On my previous flight for Qatar, I managed to spill a load all over me. And I didn't want to make that mistake here. Everything here was absolutely delicious. 2 caviar services like this within a couple of days is pretty good going. I really didn't think it would be something I enjoyed, but it just tastes really fresh and light. Something that goes really well when flying on a plane. And whilst I'm chomping away and all that, let me just say a quick word about the crew. The service throughout the flight was absolutely fantastic. Very friendly, attentive, efficient, and they really seem to want to make it a special experience. I think that's one thing that Emirates do really well. They can really make flying feel like a special event, especially when you're up here in first class. Always eager to help, see if there's anything they could do for me, really friendly and polite, and always addressed me by name. Once I polished off that caviar, it was time for the starter. Yes, we're not even on the starter yet. And for that, I opted for the Arabic meze. A really great assortment here that was laid out beautifully. It all tasted great. I would have maybe liked a couple more flatbreads, but very nice quality. Although I do think I slightly prefer the one you can get on Qatar. For my main course, I go for the Chinese style braised chicken served with jasmine rice, choy sum and baby corn. All very nice, nothing particularly special though. So I followed that up with something very special, a glass of the Hennessy Paradis. An incredibly expensive cognac that goes for £1,000 a bottle. I'm certainly no cognac expert, but this stuff was an absolute treat. Something I can never see myself paying for individually, but fantastic to be able to enjoy on a flight that costs less than the bottle. Alongside this, I finished off the meal with a salted caramel cheesecake. Absolutely delicious. Once my table was cleared, I decided to make my way back to the back of business class to go find the onboard bar. This is a great social space at the back of the plane, where they'll serve cocktails, they've got snacks available, but unfortunately by the time I made it over here on this flight, they'd all been packed away. So here's what it looked like on a previous flight I've been on in business class. I wasn't too bothered about missing out on it on this flight, but still the crew were really apologetic that it had all been closed away, and they were still just saying, oh no, please let me know if there's anything I can get you. They also offered to take a Polaroid of me behind the bar, but after that I just made my way back over to my seat, and I decided to try out the seat in lie flat mode. Now the crew had offered to properly set up the bed for me with all the bedding, but I just thought for the length of flight it was and for how short a time I was going to be lying down, I didn't want to bother them for that. But even without using the mattress pad and the blanket, it's a very comfortable seat to lie down in. You've got a great amount of space. The seat itself is really comfortable as well, and a very comfortable pillow. I would definitely have no issues at all sleeping in here on a longer haul flight. Well, unless I was too busy enjoying everything else that was on offer. But after a few whiskies and cognacs, I'd surely start to get sleepy eventually. Shortly before we started our descent, the crew came around again and offered a box of chocolates. This thing was absolutely rammed full with chocolates. All very nice, but I did save them for later. And they asked if there's anything else they could get me. I asked for a Johnny Walker Blue Label, another £200 whiskey that they've got on the menu, and one that I always really enjoy. I also decided to ask if there's any chance they could get me an Amenity Kit. Similar to the pyjamas, they're not handed out as standard on this route, but they were happy to oblige. And this thing is rammed full of goodies, probably the best Amenity Kit I've ever had on a flight. You've got your dental kit, shaving kits, deodorant, Bulgari moisturiser, and a very good sized Bulgari aftershave. It's not all that dissimilar to what they have in business class, to be honest, but you do get things in bigger quantities. The cabin was then prepped for landing and I was still drinking my drink. Often in those situations it would be cleared away or it would be given in a plastic cup so that I could keep drinking during landing. But the crew came up with a novel solution to this, that I could just stick it in my minibar and that would keep it secure during the landing. I really enjoyed everything about this flight. The seat is brilliant, you've got great privacy and comfort, service from the crew that's amongst the best in the sky, a meal that I really enjoyed, especially that caviar service, some really special drinks, and of course that bucket list tick of having a shower on a plane. And it was overall just a really fun flight experience, and one that was 100% worth the price I paid. Looking out the window on descent into Hong Kong, sipping on my whiskey, I was sat there with a big smile on my face and just feeling a lot of gratitude. After recent redundancy, YouTube is currently my sole source of income, and whilst it's not something that I can live on and it also doesn't make me any money as I reinvest every penny I make into making more videos for the channel, the fact that I can fund fun trips like this thanks to the support I get on YouTube is really pretty incredible. So thank you very much for watching, liking, commenting and subscribing. I don't really talk about that kind of thing on this channel much, so I like to just focus on the content. But yeah, I was just feeling a lot of gratitude in that moment and I wanted to share that. Views on descent into Hong Kong were fantastic, and after a smooth landing and quite a lengthy taxi over to the terminal, it was finally time to disembark. I think it's very telling about the Emirates First Class experience, the fact that I was leaving with a completely rammed full goodie bag. Tons of amenities, pyjamas, slippers, a notepad and pen. They give you that tote bag for a good reason. Really curious to get your thoughts on this one. Would you pay that price for a 3-hour flight with Emirates? Given that price has increased quite a bit from where it was before, is it still worth it? And I've mentioned a couple of times in this video that previous experience in Qatar Airways First Class a couple of days before this. If you want to see how that experience compares to this one, watch this video next.